That's just the
I've
vision's
been on the
terrible.
end for so long.
I bet
now.
when you watch this video, my nose is going to be a vivid red.
Well,
Why don't you try to lead us in? You do the intro.
This
today.
is not the day.
Yeah.
That's my point. It'll be even funnier.
This is awful. I'll do it another time. but not
All
today.
right.
Oh, Nathan wants it.
Here we go.
He does
He
all.
wants
Here we
it.
go.
He does all the
Ladies and
editing.
gentlemen.
Let him do it.
Yeah. Welcome to the FN Movie Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about Legend with Dylan, Mason, Price, and Nathan.
You refer to yourself in the third person?
That's right.
Like me, Nathan.
Tom Hardy can do it
Nathan.
about himself. We can do it too.
Yeah, Tom Hardy
Yeah.
can do it. Nathan can.
For flavor, I'll give it to you.
So,
factor.
for this review, we will be playing ourselves and also our brothers, as is appropriate.
I think that's good.
Ugh, Johnny Jackson or Thomas?
Oh shit.
Actually, yeah.
I don't have any.
Darian, if you're watching this podcast, I don't know how to impersonate you. I'm sorry.
There you go, Nathan. That's supposed
but
to be.
I don't know.
You can be one of Price's other
My
brothers.
dad has-
Yeah, you can be the other brother. You can be Jackson or Thomas. You take your
You can be,
pick.
yeah, you can be
I'll be
Thomas.
Jackson.
Hey guys, everybody likes me. I don't know why.
I'm a handsome dude.
Yeah.
all right. So we're getting somewhat derailed here, but
No.
this little series that we're doing is mostly us trying to
Special boy.
get Dylan here.
Win my
So,
heart.
like our pitch.
It's not his birthday.
It's not Valentine's anymore, but it's near enough to it that we're still trying to win Dylan's heart, and this was my attempt to do so.
He will have roses next week, and one of us will get a rose.
That's fact.
100%.
That's true.
Yeah.
That will happen.
Depends on
Oh,
who
yeah.
pays him the most.
Yep.
All right, Nathan, you get to pick who does the summary. It can't be you, so it has to be somebody down here. So take your pick of the litter.
Let's let Mason have
Yeah!
All right, I can do this one pretty well.
Can-
I actually did my research too behind it.
Oh,
This movie
Okay.
is strictly about the Craze brothers in London in the 1950s and 60s. They were coming about in the 50s. This takes place in 65, I think.
No, it's during World War II. Because they're talking about drafting and stuff like that.
It goes from the beginning to
It
that point.
absolutely
Yeah.
does.
Right.
But it starts like in the 40s.
It starts backwards because he gets his brother
it kind
into
of
the
does
asylum
move
before it
through
gets into
time.
the-
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
let's
right.
get
So
some-
the range of anywhere from the 40s to the 60s is.
Basically,
My
you're doing
apologies.
terrible.
My apologies. Anyways, it's pretty much Tom Hardy and his brother.
Tom Hardy.
So it's Reggie. Reggie is Tom Hardy, and we'll call him the main character. And then Ronnie is his twin brother, identical twin.
We have to refer to them as their names.
We
can't say Tom
can't.
Hardy.
We
Yeah.
really can't. So Reggie is the main character who kind of just weasels his way through London and gets all of these contracts with everyone and starts essentially a mafia sort of thing with the help of his henchman brother Ronnie, and who is psychopathic in this movie.
Well, he's diagnosed.
Yeah.
He is
actually
certifiable,
Truly mentally ill.
crazy.
Yeah.
And
Therapist, can you confirm?
he is the
It's a character.
muscles of the operation. Anyways, it is about taking down other gangs and remaining the prominent gang in London. It weaves in and out of Reggie's character falling in love with the girl and their marriage, how it works out and how eventually it does not.
Put it lightly.
And essentially towards the very end, Ronnie and Reggie, they sort of part ways, and it doesn't end well for most of this movie.
It's a very typical gangster story wraps up
Yeah,
cliche.
it's-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You
Then no
can't-
one's happy.
You
Yeah.
can't really bank on anyone living from the beginning, and you're almost completely right by the end.
Yeah.
So that's really all it is, I think. Unless I
Yeah.
missed anything.
I feel like much of this story does center around the love story
100%.
Right.
because it's even narrated.
Everything is narrated by
Her.
the wife of
the wife. Of
It's
Reggie.
Emily
Frances.
Browning.
Yeah, it's Emily Browning, Frances. in the
Frances.
movie.
Yeah, Frances. Yeah.
Oh, I totally forgot what her name was.
Yeah.
I had okay.
I don't
Can
know
I-
how you could forget.
can-
It says
okay.
a lot.
So
Sure.
I'm gonna say my first hot take on this movie.
Okay.
The only reason I remember Frances vividly is because I had subtitles on. This movie was harder than shit to listen to and interpret. I needed subtitles
Really?
for this movie more so
Yes.
than I needed it for Parasite. if that tells you anything. And I'm pretty okay with British accents.
The first 10 or 15 minutes, it's either a mix of the sound mixing really isn't that great, but sometimes they're too quiet and then the music is too loud. And, this may vary if, like, Netflix did any different mixes compared to, like, initial release. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I watched it on Netflix, but the sound mixing on certain parts is just bad. Like, the volume's way down here, and the music is going on up here, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. But yeah, sometimes it was just very Cockney all the way through. It was all the accent, and which I'm not gonna fault them for because it's like literally it's in Britain or it's it's literally in the UK, so it should be like that. And it's just my poor non-American brain being able to, or American brain not registering all the words. So in fairness, I'm like, you're doing your job. But it gets easier throughout the movie. But I remember the first 20, 30 minutes or so, it is a bit of a roadblock, and then later it smooths out.
Yeah. I didn't even really.
Oh no! All three of us had. It might as well have been another language. I had subtitles on the entire time.
It was rough. It reminded me of Brad Pitt's character in Snatch. Like that
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't pikey bad.
No, not Reggie.
No,
Ronnie's
his thing.
Ronnie was like he had a bunch of cotton stuff.
Yeah,
it was, and he had like not a speech impediment, but something else going on, and I'm sure that was Tom Hardy's way, kind of like the glasses.
Right.
This is Reggie. This is Ronnie, and that's all you really knew the difference.
Ronnie was very like at the front of the mouth stuff, like very tight throat. It's funny though. So watching this after. Like, all right, my Tom Hardy fandom, I'm like, all right, I've watched Bronson, I've watched Dark Knight Rises, and I've watched, Eames and Inception. Right, yeah. And all three of these characters' voices come through both of these characters at various points. Like, there are some points where I'm like, that just sounds just like Bane, but without the voice modulation.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are other parts I'm like, that's Bronson. That's literally Charles Bronson whenever he's in Bronson. And in that part, I'm like, oh, that's fun. I like this. This is a good time. Like, I'm getting a little bit of each of this little character sprinkled through here.
That is specifically noted just for the fact that it's all Tom Hardy parts. Like,
yeah.
Tom Hardy does play a very well-rounded character in anything that he does, but he has got the vocal. It's kind of like a band that you like that has a very distinct vocalist, or a vocalist. I think Tom Hardy's just one of those. You're gonna know his voice without even seeing him.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
If you put him in an animated movie and you suddenly hear Tom Hardy, you're like, I don't know if that's Chewie or whatever it's supposed to be, but that's Tom Hardy's voice.
That's definitely Tom Hardy in that animated.
And he'll probably call you a fucking cunt the entire time. Because that's translated over any of his British roles. It's either that, like, as Bronson, or in this movie, I'm just like, oh, there it is. Yeah. He points, he's got the same face and everything. It's perfect with that. I was like, Which I thought was fun for me, because if you're like these other movies and you see that kind of coming out, I'm like, okay, I enjoy this. This is fun.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and bring up my biggest gripe of the movie. I'll say positives later, because I think I usually do positives and negatives, but I'm going to start out with the big negative that shaped everything for me, and that is that I felt like this movie wanted to almost be like an epic, telling the story of the craze, because it does so much. And I've said this before about a lot of movies, but like it tries doing so much in this movie, and I honestly don't feel like it does it well. Like the beginning, like it feels like it's going to be this like gangster kind of epic, and then there's this huge chunk of the middle where it's about Francis and Reggie, and it's just about their love story, and it's just all about their romantic entanglement with each other. And then the end part is like how these two brothers fall out with each other and how they eventually come to ends with each other. And I was just confused. Like I didn't really know what I was watching, because my biggest thing with the movie is what it starts out with. I want that tone to be present throughout the movie, and this movie wasn't it for me.
Yeah, I agree completely that this movie tells to me like a lot of stories. Like this is, it's not actually that long, but it goes a lot of places and ends up feeling like
it's just a little over 2 hours.
It feels like you pretty much watch most of their life, and you do, because it starts with kind of their early crime, like being just another one of the gangs vying for control over London, to like them being the ones on top and dealing with the Americans and things like that.
Right.
So it does span a pretty good chunk of their life. And it tells a lot of story in there, and it does, the love part, it is kind of like this sidetracking off of what you would expect would have been a mostly gangster-focused movie. But it was meant to kind of tell the story of these people, which are real people.
The Craig brothers.
Which I wish Francis just left out. Like when we go to the fat, thin, or perfectly fit part, I wish she wasn't in the movie at all. I wish it was just about the brothers and just about their control over London, and how they did about that day to day, and how Reggie and Ron were like how they interacted more together and like feel that connection more. I just wish she was out.
After I watched it, to that point, like, or to defend the movie rather, like, there was actually a Frances. She did actually OD. Mm-hmm. Like, I think she OD'd in real life, but she definitely committed suicide. And like I'll agree, but at the same time, I don't think that this was trying to be an epic. I do think that they were trying to like target a few different things, kind of like, you know, an action adventure. Not really action adventure, but like that genre wants to put a little love interest in there, just to appeal to as many, you know, people as they can.
To appeal to a broad audience.
Yes.
Right? You know, again, I feel like so much with these kind of movies where it's like, this is based on a true story sort of thing, like, you're gonna get more than you might personally think should be in a movie because it's trying to tell a real story.
Yeah,
that
accurately.
Happened.
The demographic all changes if it's a true story, because then you're like, okay, I'm only being able to be given what it is giving me.
Right.
And that's it. I mean, it's...
Yeah, and I would agree. I think structure-wise, this movie does try to do too much during its runtime, and I think it does tend to be bloated because of it, because, yeah, you start with the crime part, and you get... I don't hate like the Frances parts in the beginning because I do just think that, and maybe it's just me, like I'm just naturally charmed by Tom Hardy to begin with. So seeing him not just be like this like bulky rough dude, like if I wanted to just watch him be like a bulky gangster dude, I'd watch Bronson. So having a little bit of levity and having like that Frances balance it out, I thought was fine. It did seem like too much because it did take away from the parts I thought was most interesting in the film. Whenever he was doing like the gangster stuff and doing that, that's obviously my appeal to the movie. And then as it kind of goes on. But I think the movie's first big mistake is already just making Frances the narrator and kind of the main part of the movie to begin with. Like, her involvement in this movie is automatically staked in by making her the narrator, because you know that from... It's really, in a way, just as much her story as it is theirs, from the beginning to end.
She'll be there from the beginning all the way to the
end. Which I think is not the best decision, and granted, it might have been based on information that came from her previously from a book or something like that. I don't know where the source info is. Maybe you saw something on that.
Well, there was a Cray Brothers movie back in like the 90s.
Right.
And from what I read lightly just from that, I don't think that they included Frances as much at all. So maybe this was their spin. Maybe this was them saying, all right, listen, like we can't do the exact same movie. Let's put a little love in it. I don't know. But
it would have...
I'm not defending it. I'm not trying to...
I think it would have been fine if it did anything more other than expand on Reggie as a character. Because in the scheme of the story, it's you look at it and it's Reggie and Ron, and it's how they move forward and how they interact with everybody. And sure, like, Frances is like one of the main people that they're interacting with, but this is their movie, but it also starts to become part of Frances's movie as well. And I'm like, well... I think that's where you're adding on too much of her to that stuff.
I didn't come here for this.
Right.
I came here for those two.
It chugged the movie on this isn't a long movie, but it does feel like a long movie, which is already going to spoil my answer and perfectly fit. Like, it goes on a little longer than it should. But it's, whenever it hits its strides and it hits the parts it needs to, it is very entertaining. And
entertaining.
I automatically want to leap into one of my favorite parts with this is the part where they're in the bar the first time. It's him and the McAndersons or McDonald's, whatever the rival gang. There's the rival gang that's also in UK in the beginning of the film.
It was between the two of them.
Right. And they're like, oh, there's a peace treaty battle, let's go and meet at the bar, right? So they go in there and it's just the two brothers initially. And it's like 6 or 7 other like gang guys.
Scene.
Right.
It is. Then the bartender he's like, oh yeah, I gotta go down.
Gotta change the thing.
I don't know what I gotta do, but it's down there.
Right.
I'm gonna go down there.
Literally goes underneath the bar, closes the hatch, and then like Ronnie instantly, I was ready for a gun. None of y'all brought guns. God damn it! He just storms out, and then just proceeds to go into like the big bar fight that it is. Like that. So strangely enough, between that and Ronnie talking about his homosexuality in the movie, man. Ronnie really, like, at parts I'm just like, Ron, you're messing this whole movie up, but then at other parts I'm like, Ron, you're really selling me on this movie.
I'm with you, bud. I
think it's actually kind of like low-key kind of sweet, like how the way he describes it to Frances. He's like, I don't think you should deny who you are, you know, I think you should just be, if you're gay, then you're gay. And you're like, but then he follows up with, and I'm quoting this, so I'm sorry, gay community, for this, but then he's just like, yeah, but I'm a giver, I'm not a receiver, I'm not like one of those ones or something like that. And I was just like, that's exactly how somebody like you would think about that. Like, so I'm like, I just laughed at the entertainment value for it because he's just throughout the movie. Taron Egerton's in this movie.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just like, that's Taron Egerton. And I'm like, good for him. Like,
He's really funny in
yeah,
this
he's
movie.
really good in this movie.
Like, I loved him when Ronnie went on stage and it was just bullshit.
Yeah.
And he's dying laughing, just howling at his jokes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the cast surrounding Ronnie and Ronnie himself, like, really do find these moments that are just, like, nail and shine. At the same time, he is also 99% of this movie's like, not the movie, but like the plot's problems is because he's, I don't like this. So he's always talking too much. Let's get this guy.
Reggie went to jail for X amount of months, and like Ronnie fucked
everything
up. Like he almost had them.
I want to build a city in Nigeria.
Yeah, there's a place, and I want to give back to the children on another continent.
I would imagine so much of this is kind of based in reality.
Right.
Too,
this is one of those ones where, like, the reality is probably much more weirder than the movie actually was.
Yeah. Yeah, he really just... anything going wrong in this movie was his fault.
Yeah.
Except when Frances started to, like, get distance between herself and Reggie.
Yeah.
Then the movie took a dark turn. I was going to check with you guys and see. I could have sworn, and maybe I missed something, whenever Reggie just turned, like a switch, like, then he raped Frances at that one part. Like, what happened to him at that?
Because he was just showing his true colors, and he was just frustrated.
So, like, it was just, like, months of just, like, built up, almost too much Mr. Nice Guy, and then he just, all of a sudden... I don't know.
I mean, somebody like him, I think, is going to be inclined to go to that violence and force. Like, he shows how strong he is by physical force. So I think that was going to be one of those natural progressions for, like, any relationship that he has. He's like, okay, I feel like I'm losing power. She's trying to lead me to do this. Fine, I'm pushing this all the way far.
Yeah, I guess that was it. I just thought you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I swear I thought that was Ronnie.
They
like,
dressed up as Reggie and did
like,
that to him.
yeah, and I was sitting there like,
jeez,
Reggie wouldn't do this. This is something that Ronnie would do, even though he's, his sexuality is kind of on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I was like, why is he being so vicious? Like, why is he so, like, awful right now? Like, what happened? And I swear to you, I thought I missed something because all of a sudden he's in this bedroom, like, closing the door, yanking her around.
So I think the movie does kind of a good job kind of giving you subtle hints. Not that he's gonna like get to the point where he's raping her, but showing that as while they're showing you all of like, so it's essentially from Frances's point of view in their relationship. Mm-hmm. So as she sees him, you only see all of this charming, gentlemanly stuff, right? But then in the narration, you even hear her kind of describe, okay, he lied to me again, or it wouldn't last long, and she's talking about like this domestic violence cycle in that way, which is very relative to people who are going to be like raping their spouses on that.
Yeah.
So in the way, like I'm with you, like in movie it seems out of character, but it gives you enough to sit there and say, okay, you're seeing it how Frances would see it, and of course she would love him. Like, she's like, I love you no matter what. It's this very blind love, so the movie itself doesn't even show Reggie being as bad as he actually is.
And it definitely emphasizes how useless she is, too. Like, she can't do anything.
She can't make tea, she can't... I think it's torn up for her family, like, from Ronnie and Reggie's family.
She's exiled from her family.
Yeah.
Basically, besides her brother.
Mm-hmm. It just, for the most part, it made me feel really bad for her. Like, sure, you could say that she... Like, how... I don't understand how she messed up T. Like, that...
That's fair.
Like, that seemed like they were just being mean to her.
Right.
Yeah, and...
Oh, honey, we're British and you messed up tea. Like, go hang yourself.
It just looked clear, didn't it? I'm pretty sure we
it
got
looked
a shot
like dirty
at the
water.
tea.
Right, which is probably the problem, is that she didn't, like...
Yeah.
And if you're living over in England, like...
And you don't
that's
know how to
something
make
you have to get right.
You have like one thing to get right in England, and
it's
that
like
is
scrambled
making
eggs
tea
here, right?
I would say being
eggs.
obese is
Or
our
maybe
That's
like
our
a grilled
bad.
cheese, but I do think that grilled cheeses are tougher to make than scrambled eggs here.
No, but when you think of England, you think of like
That's
biscuit.
American.
You think of like biscuits and tea. Like
Yeah,
that's
sure.
what you think over here. Over here, you think like maybe like apple pie or something. I don't know.
That's
cheese
tough
bread.
to mess up, or I mean, tough to make. I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
But I say I don't bake for that exact reason. If it was easy to make, I'd look a lot more American. I'd put it that way. So, but yeah, cooking stuff aside. Yeah, I mean, I think the movie has a lot of entertaining points, all things considered. But the way it ends, it just I do have a little bit of beef with how it ends, and just being that it feels like a fizzle. Like it doesn't have to be a big explosion or like a Michael Bay anything to keep my attention, but it just feels like the movie has a very big hype, and then it just kind of goes. Nah.
You didn't think the stabby part was kind of.
Honestly, at
Big.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, yes and no. For
Like,
me,
It was also interesting, that scene in particular I found interesting because you saw the transition of era happening there
Yeah.
because it was like almost looking like the 70s were coming in.
yeah,
with
like in
just
the room, it is
the
very
shag
70s,
and everything. Like
True.
time was moving on and like their time was over.
Yeah.
Right at the moment of that scene.
Just like another movie that you picked not just like a month ago.
Oh,
Gangs of New York, in case anybody.
Oh, I
I
thought
don't
you
know
were
what he's
talking about
talking
Blade
about.
Runner.
Just
I was
like Gangs of New
that's-
York.
Yeah. I think that's something the movie should be praised for, though, because it does
Ah,
it very
dang it.
subtly. It does it subtly, and I appreciate it because it does. It's very. It never just gives you like a lot of movies are lazy. They just give you the date, like, oh,
Yeah.
in this scene is in this date because we're not going to change how they look. We don't want it. Like it just subtly changes the background, subtly changes like the setting that they're in, or changes the club, or changes Ronnie's apartment pad or whatever.
Mhm.
And even in the politics, they talk about the elections and stuff like that and kind of tie that into real stuff. So it's, Price, of all people, you should respect that because it doesn't just give you it. It just says,
Yeah.
hey,
No, I do.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. I just
you of all people is almost like, I hate it when a movie treats me stupid.
No, I like that. Like I was mocking the fact that like, oh, I helped Nathan's movie when I don't really like it. No, I like that. I like that fact.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we were kind of arguing about the date. That like Mason was like, I thought it was like in the 50s, but I was like, no, they were drafting and
Anywhere
stuff
from
for
the
that.
50s to the 70s. So
Yeah.
it does a good job of transitioning.
It doesn't hold your hand. It respects your intelligence.
Right.
Wow, who would have thought?
with subtitles.
With subtitles.
Oh, I definitely have subtitles.
I just kind of grinded through the first part, and it like after I was through it, I was fine. I think for a little bit, you just kind of got to get used to somebody else, how somebody speaks. Like, I mean, even with the Dark Knight Rises with the Bane voice, that like the first one through on that and movie theater speakers in
I
my
couldn't
ears,
understand it at all.
I was like,
You just had to speed
Yeah.
Bane's voice up to 1.5 speed, and then you were fine. That's,
Now-
he just talked so
Mm-mm.
slowly.
you can put it just audio now, like butter to me. I know it now. I'm like, all right, God, I know what he's saying. It's easy, but he's been memed to death, so that doesn't help either.
By the way, we forgot to do after the summary where Nathan or the person who picked the movie says why they picked the movie
True.
for the person of the month.
I had to
So-
do it, so please do it.
We want to do that right after
Please.
the format one. I think kind of blends into the right before scores.
I don't care.
Okay, that's
I'm
what
saying we didn't say it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fine. So let's
Um,
do fat, fit, perfectly fit. And that's
All right.
fine.
Fat,
Fat.
fit, perfectly fit.
You all do
Yeah,
the
there we
same
go.
joke every
Yeah.
time.
There we go.
Now
We
we're
did
just
it. We
sandwiched
did it
in
right
it.
this time.
Wait, I thought I got it right. Oh, well, who cares? Fat, fit, or perfectly thick. I'll never get it right on purpose. Anyway, fat movie goes over its welcome, or overstays its welcome. It's long. You kind of wish it was shorter. Thin movie, the opposite. You kind of wish there was more. Maybe didn't run as long as you wanted to.
Dylan, I'm going to be
Perfectly fit.
completely honest with you on the
But-
camera right now. I have seen our podcast over and over,
It's fine.
episode by episode. You describe this in every single one of them. Every single one of
Because
them.
not everybody watches every movie from the first video onward. They gotta come in. We have new viewers who maybe
will
only
catch
wanted
the
to
gist
watch
as soon as
Legend.
we say it.
Perfectly fit. You get it. The movie matches the runtime.
I
Let's
am
get into
so
the
sorry.
Here we go again.
His face is as red as his nose.
Yeah.
I tried to match it. Does it match?
I don't care. I believe that new viewers tuning in who only watch this one movie are gonna be like,
They'll
oh,
get the gist of it.
yeah. After I explain it
Agreed.
to them.
You could just say fit, thick, or thin about
Okay,
the movie's
so
length, and we'll probably get
As
there.
far as that goes, I do think every one of us finds this movie to be kind of fat.
Yes.
Yes.
But for different reasons, so I would like to go through those.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I get that you all didn't quite care as much for Francis's participation in this movie.
She's gone from my movie. Cool.
I
Don't
don't
say that.
I don't
Okay.
see that you could get rid of her. Like, I mean, I guess you could say that you would shift focus more towards like the story of what they were actually doing as a gang.
Yes.
I feel like that's a different movie in a lot of ways.
That's the movie I want.
Okay.
Sign me
Well,
Go watch Kings of New York then.
No.
yeah. This is one for me that it did feel long. Like it felt long enough to where like I was checking how long it was, but it's because it had that whole middle section where it kind of felt like there was a different little mini movie that happened.
Yep.
So I would probably do some trimming around that to try and make it not overstay its welcome as it did. But I mean, other than that, I don't think Frances should be removed. But that's my opinion.
Well, here comes my opinion because it's my turn, and I'm taking her out of the movie. I don't want Frances in this movie. I thought she detracted from the movie. Thought she added way too much to the runtime and didn't add enough to warrant her large of a presence in this movie. If she was taken out, we could focus more on Tom Hardy, which I think is exactly what the movie's trying to do. I mean, him acting with himself, and he crushes it. He's by far the best part of the movie.
He even
And-
fights himself.
Mhm.
Yes, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
That was silly to me.
No,
Like the camera angle, because it would do like this, and then it would be like him in different makeup, and then it'd be like him in this, and then him in different makeup.
I still liked it. I mean, especially for I think it was 2005 was this movie, right?
No.
2015.
Whoa, I was way
there's a
off.
lot
Yeah, this
more
movie is very advanced
Never
in
mind.
time.
Recent.
Like,
Yeah, this is like right in between all like the Inception, Bronson,
like
this period. Like,
before the key or whatever, or lock.
I don't care.
With an
I
E.
still really enjoyed that part. I really liked that part because it really showed like how these two brothers really like talk to each other, like how they communicate is through violence, and of course they would. That's
Yeah.
who they are. But that's beside the point. Francis out of the movie. You trim off about 30-45 minutes of the movie. I'm down.
So this movie, I can't sit here and trim it to death with Francis. This movie gives you Francis. How can you work?
Get Francis.
Yeah, how can you work with this movie since it gives you Francis? I'm not going to sit here and cut her out. I'm not going to try to cut too much of that out. But I do think that some of the earlier days I could have done without. This movie does a very good job at the very beginning. It establishes the fact that Reggie Cray is tight with the cops for the most part-ish. You know, he's sitting there, he's handing them tea. That's all I need on the background. Let's go from there. You know, like he's obviously got a pretty good lockdown on London and that other gang. He exterminates them pretty quickly. I'm fine with this movie, so any of the background stuff I could probably do without. It is a true story. Maybe you need that since it is being based on a true story. I don't. This movie is... Okay, so on some of the trivia that I read, this was the second most grossing movie in London.
really?
Up to date, yes.
Huh.
Now, that was as of that year, so maybe within the past 3
It's a
years.
very specific.
This movie is London.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
very
I don't know. I did read what the other one was, but I would not be surprised if the other one was like Shaun of the Dead. Or, something wild,
Something
kooky.
very, very London.
Yes,
Or- yeah.
some kind of quippy British humor. I don't know.
Hmm.
This movie
Monty
is for
Python.
Londoners.
Nope.
Don't.
Don't.
Don't you
Don't.
dare say that.
Monty Python.
No.
So yeah, this
Okay.
movie's a little bit, definitely fat. Sorry, not a little bit. Definitely fat just because of their background, and I'm okay with it. I know they're brothers. Don't need it, some montage or,
I don't know. They didn't
1940s.
say it all the time like they do in Brothers, though.
They do it twice.
We're brothers.
They do it like once or twice, and I remember like right after because of watching that, I was just like, "Don't use that line. Don't."
I'm glad it ruined it for you.
Mason, on the other hand, Mason writing it.
Yeah, Mason's like, I love this part.
Yeah.
I
No,
know that they're brothers.
I just think that, like the background stuff, I get it. It's all good.
Yeah.
One of them wasn't in jail, and got introduced to the movie like that. Didn't need to be. I think it
Ron
opened very
was?
well.
Ron was in jail.
Well, they both went to jail.
No, I'm talking about the beginning of the movie. Ron was in jail.
Ron was in that psychiatric
Mom was in
ward.
a psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
Pretty much the
And
same.
they paid off the
Back then.
Different.
therapist to
Yeah.
send them out. Anyways,
Yeah.
all right, I'm done. Go.
Yeah, fat. I'm somewhere between Price and Mason on this. I don't think that you cut out Frances out of the whole movie because you sign up to get it. And there are parts that, for the first half of the movie, I think that she serves that purpose well of being that dynamic between the two. But I think that she becomes too much of the focus in the second half, and that's where it starts to get fat. So you
Maybe
definitely
when it focuses on her car and she's sitting there
Yeah,
just struggling,
just- silly moments like that. I think they.
I thought that was a good, meaningful scene.
maybe, yeah.
I think they get there without needing it though. That's the extra. It's not that it's. I wouldn't say that it's bad. It's just I didn't need this to get to where it gets to. The rape scene I think happens and builds up fine with the subtle talking throughout the first half of the film, and once the bad stuff starts happening, I think that all kind of adds up still without needing the extra scenes in the second half. The movie wrapping on her death essentially, and then just kind of adding in their stuff afterwards.
Piling on afterwards.
Yeah, I don't like how that paces very well. I'd probably slim that up. It kind of has a little bit of a Quentin Tarantino effect for the second half of the movie. They have scenes that I think just it sits, and then it sits for 4 or 5 seconds longer than it needs to, and I just want to cut those parts off. I'm like, shorter scene, shorter scene, shorter scene. And I think that's where I would start trimming. But overall, I think a lot of the scenes are important and stick, and I think that's fine. The cop scenes, I'm with you on this one. Some of the early stuff makes sense to give you just the basis of it, but as it kind of keeps going on and focuses on that one detective who's always following him, I'm just like, I don't care. Like if they get him at the end because he murders a dude, I didn't need to feel personal from this guy who just felt like
this
he needed
dude
to follow
couldn't
him.
get him throughout the whole movie. The only reason
Yeah.
he got him is because Reggie snapped for the second time that you saw this whole movie.
Right, even the scene
They're
where
nuts.
he walks in and they both take a picture and send it to his commissioner. I'm like,
Yeah.
all of that. I'm like, see, I don't need all of this. Like,
Yeah.
this could all happen in the
Oh, that
background,
was
and I would
fun.
believe.
I kind of like that
I
part.
think it's
enjoyed
fun,
that stuff.
But
Yeah.
it's the extra stuff. Like, it all ties in because you have that scene. You have to have 3 other scenes with him to make him a more relevant character.
Mm.
So it's the stuff that I get. It's not like way too long, but this movie definitely could wrap at like 30 minutes sooner. I think 30 minutes is a fair amount. Like, and it seems like a lot, but the more I think about it, I'm like, oh, it'd be perfectly fit at like 1:45.
Mhm.
But yeah, Nathan, you want to tell me why you picked this movie for me before we get to our scores and picks?
I mean, it was a little bit just because it was Tom Hardy.
You don't say.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I first started watching it too, I didn't realize that that's what this movie was. Like, I just saw it and it's like, Tom Hardy, cool. Like, this, because I've not watched a lot of modern movies, and I feel like
It's
that's
true.
become more and more obvious as I have less and less movies to choose from. So I've
Right.
started watching movies to try
God
and find
forbid.
some stuff in it.
That's a wild ride for
Right.
you.
Yeah, crazy. I know. But yeah, as I was watching this, and I was like, yeah, I could see Dylan enjoying this movie pretty well. It's got a lot of strong characters and like interesting scenes to it. I did feel like it was probably on the longer side, and I knew that was going to count against me. But you know, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, buddy. You haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, I thought he was talking about his brothers.
From last week.
We beat on him twice.
That movie was
Nothing.
only how long was that? Hour
Hour and a half.
Hour
I
and a
think
half,
it was
yeah.
like 42 minutes or something. I don't know.
Felt like 3 boys. Go watch our review of Brothers.
Brothers.
Yeah.
Don't forget the title. Jesus.
It
Give
almost
me some
it stops
certainty.
making sense to me. I've said the word so many times, both in the movie and out of the movie, that I'm like, is that actually the name of the movie? Like,
You know what? It spiraled into this.
yeah.
2 other brothers
All right.
in London.
All right. Nathan, you want to wrap up in our scores?
Yeah, sure. This movie is pretty solid. It's got good memorable moments. It does last a little bit longer than I would particularly want to see. So for me, I'm gonna be about a 7.5 on it. I did enjoy it quite a bit. There's scenes that I would want to rewatch again, such as that bar scene. I think that was fantastic. It's got a lot of weirdness to it that was just, like, and
Double
just-
hammers. Like,
Yeah, and
That
it was
was
like
cool.
showing back up again with 2 hammers.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Which you
Yeah.
know he just found like down this like next door or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Like you have
Just
to
picked
imagine
this
him going into the next door, finding anything he could. It was a hardware store,
Yeah.
you know, and then
Yeah.
he came back with those 2. Sorry.
Yeah, so 7.5.
All right, so my turn. So, what do you think? 6?
No, I would say
6?
4.
4. Yeah.
Oh, which means
Anyway.
it's right in the middle.
But I generally like this movie. Like, I didn't hate my time with it. I very much enjoyed Tom Hardy's performance. Which one of the things that I like the most is that I could tell at the beginning of the movie, I was like, Tom Hardy is Tom Hardy. Like, I can't tell the difference. By the end of the movie, I was like, that's Ron, that's Reggie, that's I know they're somewhere else.
Yeah.
No, I'm
I'll talk to
listening.
Nathan.
Yeah,
I
we're-
don't care.
we're listening,
I'll
we're
talk to
listening.
Nathan and you all.
They're talking to you guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I like that I could like there were 2 distinctive personalities, and he acted 2 different ways for that, and that gave it major credit in my book because every time he was on the screen, I very much enjoyed it. But everything else, I was not a fan of. And even though I'm giving that big of a blanket statement, I still am landing at about 6.5. Even though there's a lot I didn't like, but generally I enjoyed my time with it. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody unless if they're a big Tom Hardy fan. But yeah, 6.5.
You don't see those very often.
No,
Not walking down the street.
no, like hey, I like Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Usually they'll probably just fight you.
I was gonna say, if they say that out loud, you just don't talk to them. Like,
Yeah.
that's a rule
I
of
love
thumb.
Tom Hardy.
I'm just gonna look at their traps and be like, yeah, he does.
He does.
Tom Hardy fan? Yeah, you too.
This guy game.
I go to the gym and just Tom Hardy fan, right? Yeah, come spot me, buddy.
I hope that happens.
Oh boy, I can't wait to get to the gym.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. This movie, Nathan had suggested it last week, and for some reason it didn't completely ring a bell until he started kind of explaining it to me to the side. I've seen this movie before, but I could
Surprise.
but I could like vaguely remember certain parts. Like the guy that kept just getting punched in the nose and kept borrowing money
Yeah.
like 3 different times. Like,
here's your smoke, buddy.
yeah,
Here, you need
every time
light?
a cigarette
Pow.
came out, you know brass knuckles.
Yeah,
were
well,
coming
he
out.
got more and more nervous every time
Yeah.
that scene played out. Like, every time,
Yeah.
like, he'd get the cigarette and just like, oh, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I got hit in the face last time.
Last time, I think it's coming, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So like characters like him, I remember vividly from the rewatch and stuff like that. So I knew that those parts were coming up. But this movie, I hate to say it like this, there was a reason I didn't remember it a whole lot. I think Tom Hardy did really well. I think Emily Browning did pretty darn well as Frances, given the fact that we were stuck with her for a while.
Yeah.
Stuck is the right word.
This movie, though, I'm with Price. Like, I can't recommend this movie to anyone. This is a very British movie, and I think that it did it well with the gangster style and the thuggish, characters. I like Tom Hardy in a suit. The dude is charming as Reggie. The dude is insane as Ronnie, and that's very nice. But I landed about a 6 on this movie. I can't give it much more than that.
Have I ever, I don't know, he's lower than I am.
Yeah.
That's never happened.
No.
That sounds pretty strange.
Every movie
Yeah.
of yours, it happens.
Oh, that's true.
Oh.
Yeah. That checks out.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Literally every movie of yours.
Where do I start in this movie? So this
Oh,
movie
here comes the man.
This movie's
fat.
This movie's a fat movie.
Don't act like you have
It
a score.
embellishes at some of the stuff that goes on.
It's having to weigh all of ours.
I would say
Oh.
that, but honestly, in some of the talks, I enjoy some of the parts of the movie more, knowing that it lets you be smart as a watcher. It doesn't just give you the dates; it shows you. It doesn't just give you a twist rape. It builds and says a narration that gives him to that point where it shows that he's been a really abuser the whole time, and this is just kind of the epitome of his character. Which makes sense because it's right before his time where he gets busted on that.
Do you think it's mostly just emotional abuse, or do you think it's physical as well?
No.
Besides that.
I mean, in reality, I would guess there's probably some physical abuse in there as
I
well.
think so.
It made
Yeah.
it seem like he loved her. And
Right.
I know that was from her narration.
But there are plenty of
Still.
times where there's still like
just because you narrate,
I would assume that rape isn't going to be the first physical abuse that
Sure.
she
Okay.
experiences.
Yeah, I get
There's
that.
usually a buildup
Yeah.
in there.
To me, for the most part, it seemed like he was more a neglectful husband.
Right.
Like,
It was-
he was
100%.
running a gang.
it was ignore,
this is
neglect,
not a good
neglect.
husband. I mean,
Right.
I get that.
The movie trying to gives you this perspective that it's more neglect because this is just more important to him, less so than intentionally neglecting, like he's gaslighting her though. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it never comes off as he's intentionally trying to be harmful towards her. It's just that his priorities are out of place.
Yeah.
The end, it becomes, oh, you're my priority now, and I'm going to show you this.
Yeah.
And that's where that kind of comes into payoff on it.
She dies.
Yeah, and then she essentially ODs because of it, all things considered. Which, to be
Right.
be fart.
Beef fart.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I think kind of pays off in the end, because at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, well, the boring part of the movie is starting to wrap up now, and that's the best way you can conclude it. So.
Is killing her.
It is a suicide on that
Price's
one.
favorite part of the movie when
It's
she
when she's
died.
out. No,
Yeah.
just when she's out. I don't care how she leaves.
So all of that builds up to a score that I've got to say is going to be a 4 for each brother. We're giving this movie an 8, guys.
Oh!
Okay.
All things considered, this movie has its flaws, but Tom Hardy is way too entertaining for me not to have a good time with
To
it.
get all the way to an 8?
I give it an 8
Gosh.
because my fandom for Tom Hardy knows very little bounds.
That is so silly.
Listen.
That's the only reason you picked it.
It is. But here's the thing. You
I
gave me-
know where the bar sits
Right.
now.
You give
I
me-
get it.
So here's the thing: the movie in itself has a lot of problems, and like if this doesn't have a true carrying like Tom Hardy in 2 roles that shows 2 different characters, and these are characters that all have flavors of other characters that I love from Tom Hardy, and I get various parts of the performance interacting with one another. That in itself is like this weird fan fiction. It's like I want to write a Tom Hardy movie where I get parts of this character from this, and this, and then you have another character, and this part of this character in this, and then they just interact with each other, and then they make up a plot.
It's like if I said I like John Malkovich, and Nathan's like, boy, do I have to
Me
move
too.
it.
Then you're gonna love being John
Like,
Malkovich.
I'm gonna
Right.
give it a 12. Like,
This movie- This
I'll
movie
give it a
is being
12.
Tom Hardy because, and listen, yeah, again, there's about 30 minutes of runtime that goes on too long. I really like Emily Browning's kind of useless for the second half of this movie, but I really find her entertaining and kind of encapsulating in the
I
first
thought
half.
she was a treat, like
Right.
leading up to all of those
I
parts.
think she-
until-
That's just
She
scary.
doles out towards the middle end part, but then she peaks with all of the development on that. And as I talked about that, and I was just like, I do kind of like that they give her the narration that tell you, and it does give you that perspective on seeing that. So it's just that little bit of extra thing that I would actually put it at a 7.5, maybe even lower if it wasn't Tom Hardy in there. But Tom Hardy does enough in this movie for me where I stayed entertained, and because he's on screen for like 95% of this movie, I'm entertained for most of this movie, even when the stuff around it's boring. Mm-hmm. So, you know what? Nathan hit the point, and I know Mason's mad because he's like, picked Tobey Maguire and saying this movie was great.
Brothers is not coming anywhere near the top.
And I'm not
too.
sitting here trying to say that my movie was better than this.
I will openly say that this movie, from a structure and from a critic standpoint, is much closer to like a 6.57. But for entertainment,
that's where I'm at. I'm the perfect critic.
That would be like you guys picking like Will Smith movies for me, and then picking like Gemini Man. Like, oh my God, it's twice as much Will Smith.
That's why I say John Malkovich.
Yeah, like
future me. Remember that.
No, please don't. I've seen it.
All right. To that point, though. So again, this movie structurally and everything like that. Like, if I'm counting the pacing and the structure and the timing and all that, closer to like a 6.57 in reality. I'm closer.
Okay, I'm done.
Right. The entertainment points for it, though, for me, brings it up that extra point. If I was ever bored, if I was bored with this movie, it would be right closer to
You
that.
said you would trim off 30 minutes. You were bored at some point in this movie.
Yeah, and those were all scenes that Tom Hardy weren't there.
If you're bored, that's not an 8 movie. If you're bored at any point
Here's what I'll say. This is also the first time I've watched this, and also do this. If we did this review in like 4 months again, and we just said rewatch this movie and let's see if I keep the score on that, it probably drops.
So now you're playing the initial.
Don't even start about that.
There's not.
This should make you more angry.
There's not a lot of rewatchability to this, which is the biggest con to it.
Then how can you give it an 8 if there's not rewatchability?
I feel it in my heart that it was entertaining at an 8, though.
This doesn't make sense. I'm with Mason. Like, if you could rewatch it in that score, like an 8's a high, like an a tenuous score. If you cannot watch this movie again, be like, I still feel like I'm an 8. Yeah, I'm at an 8. Then it's not an 8. Like, if it's going down on rewatches, 8 is.
Well, tell me on the rewatch. Anyway, guys,
it's still his score. It's still his score at the end of the day.
You can't counter with Tom Hardy. Go not Jake Gyllenhaal. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Go someone else.
I actually was
hit a
for my
couple,
pick, but we're not to my part yet. But
like
I was
50-50.
going to.
You might be able to win.
I was thinking.
Watch 50-50.
Here, Mason, let me bring you back into this. The end part that I thought I actually laughed when I definitely shouldn't have was when the girl, like after she died, she was like, "You probably thought I was going to live because I'm the narrator." Like, good Lord, I'm thinking of me, Earl, and the dying girl.
Nostalgia points.
I don't like this.
Did she narrate?
Yeah, she narrated.
She 100% did. I remember getting a little.
She narrates.
Oh, that's right, because Catherine was mad.
Right.
Also, no. I'm trying to think. I thought you were going to talk about like the walking away one. Shut up. I thought that's the scene that you were going to ask me about.
The walking away?
Yeah, like at the very end, right before he got like busted. Right before like the tree.
Oh yeah, he walks.
I thought you were going to ask me about that ending. I was like, I didn't like that ending.
Yeah.
What would that relate to?
I just thought you were talking about the ending.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Speaking of things we should be talking about,
the ending.
We should be talking about how this week ends and how the beginning of next week begins.
No, right? No, I'm the last pick for you.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's pitching it to me. All right.
There we go.
And funny enough, Mason was saying, like, you should pick somebody from Inception, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt or something like that. And I really was going to pick The Wind Rises, which is a Miyazaki Ghibli movie, and it has JGL in it. But going to go with something a little bit more, going something way more on left field, and going with Paprika. It's a Japanese anime movie
Hate
from
that spice. It really gets in my throat.
2008-ish, 2010-ish, something like that. It's from an acclaimed director. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because I can't. But it's an acclaimed director. I'm thinking you may like it because it's very much like Inception. Like, it's got a lot of... It's all about dreams, which is all that Inception's about. There's scenes directly from this movie in Inception, so... Picking it for this guy, so
that's a dangerous move because that means I could either
really
really like it or I would hate it because I'm like, this is Inception.
This movie was before
derived
Inception.
from it, I know, but because Inception came first, it's going to be that weird.
But I thought that it was a dangerous move putting Tom Hardy ×2 in a movie.
It's true.
How is that a dangerous move? That's an easy one. That's a Kobe.
It should have been an easy one. I thought it was going to be much tougher than that. It turned out to be very, very, very easy.
No, that'd be very easy. No,
sorry, Tom Hardy nailed both of his roles, so.
Definitely did.
Tobey Maguire didn't nail his one role, and that's the flip on it. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Gyllenhaal crushes his in that movie, though, to be fair.
He doesn't do anything in that movie, though.
But he's his brother.
That's what you call a bump set.
Is he though? Is he his brother? Does he put his arm around him and say, "I'm your brother"? Rather
This
than say, "I
podcast
did-"
Go
has
watch
gone
our
on
review to find out.
entirely too long.
Anyway, guys, that's our show. Make sure to hit us in below. Is 2 Tom Hardys too much, or do you go 3 Tom Hardys next movie?
Oh.
Or do you go like 100, like being John Malkovich, which I gave like an 8 or something.
Yeah.
Great movie.
That's true. Is adding
Oh my
more of
God.
a character you like better or worse? Tell us in the comments
Keep
below.
throwing him in there. More.
If you liked what you heard from this, and if you didn't agree with this review at all, make sure to subscribe to see if this review goes down in the future, and if they get angrier about it. Nathan is winning so far, so that's pretty good.
I would definitely get angry because he gave it an 8. He's like, I don't want to rewatch it.
It's
again.
a rare experience to be winning.
Yeah.
No, he so rarely ever gets.
Sorry, I had to tank for you. I wish it hadn't come to
Go
this.
subscribe just to see if Nathan actually wins this month. Price might steal it from
Yeah,
you.
I
Am I
figured
gonna
that
get
Mason
the
would be able to
rose?
hit this. I thought you two would be in sync.
Right?
on this
I
kind of
know.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Going in blind, I would have told you Mason was the favorite for it, but he gave me Tobey Maguire, not Spider-Man. So
And here comes Nathan, right out of left
Sure,
field.
Thomas the Train in this
Hardy,
situation.
hardy.
Anyway, guys.
Thomas Hardy. Thomas the Train
Yeah.
Hardy.
Oh my God, give me that movie. That's our show. Make sure to tune in next week for paprika. It's our favorite spice on this show.
Bye.